Yeah.
Just a question, the good one at the end doesn't say anything about, like, sending something if they want it. Does that mean that you should just be including it with your query?
Sorry. No, what that means is, sorry, I'm all confused. Basically, if you send them, it'll depend on what agent you're sending it to, but including including like, I will send this to you if you like this, is almost redundant. Like, if they like it, then they'll request more information from you and you'll send it to them if you want to send it to them. Like, this whole thing is back to the simpering. It's just kind of redundant. And it will depend on the agent whether or not you'll include the first 5 pages. Some agents want you to include the first 5 pages, some agents don't. Let's look at, sorry, yeah.
I had another one. It says, I intend this to be the first of a trilogy and the bad one. And the agent doesn't want to be thinking about 3 books. The agent only wants to be thinking about the 1 book. Like, unless it's like freaking amazing, I don't feel like they're going to be jumping at the thought of taking on a trilogy by nobody.
Exactly. Trilogies by nobodies are really difficult. And what's most important is that your book be a standalone book. That even if it is part of a greater trilogy, that it doesn't need to be. That it will just function by itself. So, I mean, adding that it has the possibility of a trilogy isn't selling it. It's not necessarily detracting it, depending on who you're selling it to, but it isn't like helping it any. So that's important information. Let's look at the description of the books themselves. What do we notice about the size of the description of each of these? It's a really obvious leading question.
One's got a shorter book description.
Exactly. The bad one doesn't talk very much at all about the book. Most of it is this whole thing and about them being pre-med. That's not important. The important thing is the book. And you'll notice that most of this is just about the book here. There's this tiny 1 sentence at the very bottom that's not about the book. You'll also notice that this one's not very interesting. It's almost a little bit cliche. It's kind of vague. There's some dastardly plot, but it's not compelling. You don't care who the character is necessarily. They're a brilliant virologist, but does that give you a sense of their character, about who they are? Do you want to like dive into this book with them? Not really. Whereas this one, it gives you kind of like the sentence structure and the short paragraphs give you a sense of who the writer is and who the character is and what their voice is. Yes?
It also has more specific details about the plot, whereas the bad one is just like, these bad things happen and everyone gets diseased.
Exactly, exactly. Agents want to know the specifics of your book because that's what's going to make it different from any other book. All books have the plot. Something bad happens and we have to fix it and do something about it. So that's why you have to be specific. But let's move on. There is something else wrong with both of these actually that I did not tell you about, that I kind of tricked you about. And the reason there's something bad about these is because I didn't tell you who the agent that it's going to is. Both of these queries are going to this agent who I showed you at the beginning. She's the agent for Twilight. Do you think the agent for Twilight would care about either of these books? She clearly represents young adult fiction. She is not necessarily interested in thrillers or adult, like, sad literary fiction. And essentially choosing your agent is one of the most important things you're going to have to do when you're deciding where to, like, query your book and how to write your query. So I want to do a little exercise about how to judge agents by their lists. So these are, like, I picked and chose a few books from some real agents lists. And I'd like you to look at these top 2 for a second and draw some conclusions about what kind of books these people are interested in. And like, you can kind of tell, if you don't know who these authors are, you can kind of tell by their titles. I tried to choose books that seemed easy to understand by their titles. But yeah, can we come up with a list of like what we think these people want? I would actually, here, why don't you get into like groups of 3 and talk about it? Okay, so clearly these are kind of easy to determine. Can anybody tell me anything about Agent 1?
Young adult.
Yes. Anything else you can draw from this list?
The lower 3 sound a little middle grade.
Yeah, definitely. So young adult, middle grade.
Chicks.
Yeah, they seem to be mostly kind of girl focused. And you probably didn't know this, but that one is a picture book. So she's also interested in picture books. So clearly a very young age range. So can anybody tell me anything about agent number 2?
Nonfiction.
Yes, yes.
Sciencey.
Yeah,
Science-ish.
yeah, sciencey. Got a little economics.
History.
And like current social
Sports
scenarios.
history.
Yeah. Basically, they care a lot. They care about all kinds of nonfiction. They run the spectrum from history to economics to science. This is even a calendar, like a emotion, like one of those uplifting cat calendars. But yeah, so it's kind of like if you pay attention to what lists that they have, then you'll know who to send it to. All right. So now I want you to get back into your groups of 3, and I want you all to come up really briefly with your own book. Like just real fast, 5 minutes, come up with a basic plot, like a sentence of a plot, an idea for a character, and a title. It can be as weird or as realistic as you want it to be. Okay. Would anybody feel comfortable sharing? Just really briefly, maybe the title of their book.
Our title is Rogue.
Nice. Do you know what age range it's for?
What?
Or what genre it is?
Yeah, it's adult dystopian.
Nice. All right, anybody else want to share? I know Russell wants to share in that group.
We forgot to think of a title, but basically it is a adult thriller about a polygamous Mormon cop whose one wife murders another one, and during the course of the investigation, that's when they find out that he is this polygamist.
Awesome. That sounds really creative. Okay. And bizarre. So now we're going to go back to these agent lists. And just to preview that they're real agents, I'm going to zoom in on who they are. This is Jody Reamer.
They're
This is
so
Al
small
Zuckerman.
and hidden.
Sally Wolford Durand. This is Marilee Heifetz. So I want you to go through these lists and talk about where you think, with your group, where you think your book would fit in best, with whose lists. And they probably won't fit into, if they don't fit into any of them, then that's okay. Then what kind of a list would they fit in with? Maybe come up with a few books that you think are comparable.